is Ben Aude, who joins us now on 1620 Zone. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, good morning. How you doing? I deserve that one.
I have to ask, because obviously you made that comment a week ago, but Matt Rule talked after the game about living at the end game and taking accountability from week to week. Do we give this team too much credit and too much flack in the moment at times as a whole?
Most definitely. I think that's something that Nebraska fans are guilty of, and I say that like I'm very much guilty as well.
Ben, we talked earlier about some of the Dana Holgorsen fingerprints that we saw, and I think it was different. Like in the USC game, they were very subtle, they were very minor. I felt like in this one we saw some bigger imprints of his thumb on this offense. What did you take from it?
I definitely agree with your take there. Air Raid 101, something that I guess kind of gets misconstrued sometimes is just, throw the ball 100 times. As someone who's coached in an air raid offense and someone who had an air raid offense that had a 1,900-yard rusher, like that's not necessarily the case. A lot of the air raid concepts, and it's something that we saw on Saturday, is making the quarterback's job as easy as possible, making those reads super simple. And that's something that we saw a little bit in the USC game, but I say we definitely saw that on Saturday. Making Dylan's job as easy as possible is something that, let's be frank, he needed, right? He needed that switch up just from how the season had gone. So making that, and the biggest thing that I really like that Dana has done is, I say sometimes it's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. And he's finding playmakers that he likes, and he wants to get them the ball. He gets creative ways to get them the ball. We saw that a little bit at USC. We definitely saw those things. So to me, those are the biggest things that Dana's making a difference on right now, is making Dylan's job super easy.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to go with the next question here, because he looked like the quarterback we saw when he stepped on campus. He looked super confident, he looked decisive, and he was putting the ball on a spot. And that's something we didn't see from him in the past few weeks. I mean, is it just as simple as that, as he felt more comfortable with the reads that he was seeing?
Personally, that's kind of what I see, because I think it was definitely just a comfort thing, because like we've said this year, like if there's something that Dylan needed to improve on coming into the year, it was his footwork and his eyes. And then definitely during, the losing streak and just him not playing well, you could see like, hey, some of this is bad footwork. His eyes aren't there. He's missing guys. And yeah, he still missed a few guys. Don't get me wrong. But like his footwork looked a lot better. And I really do think it's a big confidence thing with him. He knew where his guys were going to be. The reads were super easy. His eyes looked great. When I went back and rewatched that game, yes, I do know he missed a couple of throws. But overall, especially in comparison to where we had been for the last month, his fundamentals to me looked a lot better. And I do think that's definitely a Dana thing, coming in and instilling the confidence of, hey, you don't need to overthink this. You got your reads, and then you got the check down. Just go out and play loose and play good football. And that's definitely what I saw on Saturday. So I think Dana's been the biggest difference there.
Who's been more benefited by Dana Holgorsen, Ja'Cory Barney or Emmett Johnson?
Ooh, that's a really good question. After Saturday, I would say Emmett Johnson, just because, I mean, Ja'Cory Barney's obviously benefiting as well, but I think that I feel like he would still get that benefit. Emmett Johnson is a guy that a lot of people have said very early on that a lot of people have said like, hey, we need to get him the ball more. Like just being a complete back, like he even looks really good in pass pro, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just an overall really good running back. And I'm not taking anything away from Dowdell. I think Dowdell has a great place on this team. I like him getting in there and getting 3 touchdowns. I enjoy the way we use him. They're just different backs. And the way that we're playing of this, hey, because even the run game looked different under Dana Holgorsen, right? These run plays look a little bit more fast hitting. And I feel like Emmett Johnson's definitely benefiting from, one, getting more touches, and he's getting a lot of touches in the passing game too from checkdowns and all that. So I think Emmett Johnson is definitely benefiting the most on this offense.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. We talked about the motion game and flanking out Ja'Cory or flanking out Emmett and taking the top off of the defense. And to your point, when we talk about the air raid, we don't think about the run game a whole lot, but obviously the best running performance of a Matt Rule team since he got to Lincoln. What about this system as a whole has made the offensive line look better, in your opinion?
Well, that's what's kind of been interesting is, to me, the run concepts don't seem like a ton different than what we had seen, if that makes sense.
Good point.
But the way they're being blocked, it's so much faster hitting. The biggest, I guess, gripe I had with our run game for a lot of the games this year is they just took so long to develop, right? Some of these run plays took so long to get going. And that's why Dowdell wasn't quite getting used as effectively as I think he could have been, right? It's just some of these plays took so long. The offensive line is coming out and moving people. We're getting a vertical push, and that's something that we hadn't seen for, last few games. And I don't think the offensive line's played bad this year. I just think from a run game perspective, they were getting the vertical push that you need, and the running back's able to hit that hole super well. So I definitely think the offensive line played well, but I also think Emmett Johnson and just the running backs in general did a great job hitting that hole and making moves. And Emmett Johnson made some guys miss, and that's something that's also been missing from this offense.
Jamal Banks has been much maligned by us on the radio and by the fan base this season as like he's been criticized for not blocking well in the perimeter. He's been criticized for not using his body to go up and win one-on-ones. He's been criticized for not getting open when he's got man coverage. That looked like a totally different receiver on Saturday than what we've seen coming into the rest of the season. Like, what did you see from Jamal Banks that made him so much better this weekend?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen from him is just his ability to finally this year use his big, strong body, whether it is going up or getting a ball or whether it is perimeter blocking. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the extra accountability of having a new offensive coordinator in there that doesn't care. He didn't recruit you. He doesn't really have that close of a relationship with you, so you feel like he would get you on the bench. I don't know if it's something Dana come in and said. I don't know if Dana's decided to work super close with the wide receivers. I don't know, but something about this switch, because even in the USC game, we saw, hey, Jamal Banks actually, like, perimeter blocking looking a lot better. And then you see him on Saturday, and he's like a whole different player. Like, this is the type of player we should have seen all year. So to me, I don't have any other reason other than I hate to use he decided to go out there and do it because it feels like kind of a cop-out, but like I don't see that big of a difference other than he decided to go out there and use his big body. He has the confidence to go block somebody. He has the drive to go do it. He has the ability. He's going to use his big body for good, if that makes sense. That's the biggest thing I've seen.
Ben Aude from the BA Coaches Show joined us here on the Gary Sharp Show. Dylan struggled last week, got his mojo back a little bit this week, missed some throws against USC. Not so much of a struggle this week, though. Obviously, just the one touchdown, but probably should have had two more, but Nair missed the one and couldn't get his toe down on the other. How do you grade Dylan's performance A to F on Saturday?
That's a good question. I'd probably give it a B+ is what I'd give it to him, because there were a couple throws that were missed. I want to say there was one to Barney that probably could end up being a touchdown. But like you said, there were a couple of plays that were dropped by the receivers. So I think I'd give it a B+. Overall, I think he played really well. And I think a lot of that, like we talked about earlier, is Dana coming in, making that job super easy, making those reads super easy. We're able to hit a pretty good slant route. That looks pretty good for 20-something yards. Shout out to your boy Alex Drake for that. He's been talking about that for a while. But
we don't talk about him on the show.
I just think overall, Dylan played pretty well, all things considered.
Switching over to the defensive side, Nebraska gave up some pretty big passing plays in this game, but were able to really lock it down in the red zone, force Wisconsin to kick field goals, which they missed two of. Just that the pass defense has been a problem at times this season. What did Wisconsin do that made it tough on Nebraska?
I think for the most part, it's not even necessarily what Wisconsin was doing necessarily. It was more, at least in the beginning of the game, what we were doing to ourselves. I felt like just the big cushion we were giving on a lot of, it's something that I personally don't like. And it's something that we've done a little bit this year of on, 2nd and 12, we're going to give a 10-yard cushion, and we just gave up 8 yards right there. Right. That's something that we kind of saw. And we saw as the game went on, those splits did kind of seem to tighten up a little bit. But, man, that RPO game has been killing the defense all year. That's something that I expected to see coming in, obviously, just because teams have gashed us with it and still haven't quite figured out that RPO. And I think another big thing for this defense, and I think if we end up getting into it today, of just what's going to be important for next week is like, hey, this defense has got to tackle better. Overall, I think this defense is a good tackling team. We did not see it Saturday. I think they've had times of not being a great tackling team. So if we can have the confidence to, hey, man, these receivers aren't, I know they're good. They're not that great. We should have the confidence to get up on them a little bit. Even if you don't want to completely press and jam at the line, I don't think we need to be 10 to 12 yards off these boys. And I think as we tightened up, the game got a little bit better. So, yeah, I think overall it's more just starting out with what we were doing to ourselves. But that RPO has just been the death of this defense, I feel like.
Do you have a problem with the fans rushing the field after the game?
No, not at all. I don't know your guys' thoughts, so I'll just give mine. I'm one of the younger fans. Like, I'm younger, I'm a little bit older than a lot of the people that probably stormed that field. And I was in high school the last time Nebraska made a bowl game, so I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah. Looking ahead, now Iowa's a different beast. This is going to be a different challenge for the Cornhuskers coming up on Black Friday. That running back in Iowa City looks pretty good. What do you think about the matchup with the Hawkeyes?
Okay. I feel genuinely I feel good about this game, but it's kind of contingent on we've got to control the line of scrimmage, especially defensively. We can control the line of scrimmage, and if we can tackle well, like I said, this team needs to be able to tackle. They can control the line of scrimmage, tackle well. I do actually think that Nebraska is going to win this game on Friday. I do actually believe that. I do think Iowa's a pretty good team, but I wonder how they're going to do against this Dana-led offense. I don't think Nebraska necessarily goes for 44, but I think if they can score, over 21, 20, I do think that Nebraska has a good shot to win this game. But it's really just going to come down to, can we control the line of scrimmage? Because Iowa is pretty good up front, and obviously they have a fantastic running back. I think if it wasn't for a guy in Boise, he'd be getting a lot more talk.
That's a good point.
Of, one of the best running backs if it wasn't for this kid out of Boise State. So other than him, I think, best running back in the country. So
yeah, football might work out for that Ashton Jeanty kid.
Line of scrimmage.
So
yeah, he's two really good running backs, and I think that Caleb Johnson's getting a little bit outshined a little bit just because of the amazing season out of Jeanty. But yeah,
you talked about the things that have given Nebraska trouble. It's that the RPO game. Iowa's not going to do too much of that, and they've got a walk-on quarterback that looks like he's going to be the starter perhaps for that game on Friday. So, in the pass game, Nebraska should be okay, but what do you think Iowa does that maybe they've seen some things on tape? Can they put in some of the RPO stuff? I don't know how much you've watched of Iowa and if they are doing any of that.
I don't think we're going to see a ton of the RPO stuff just because not only is it just not Iowa football, I guess, it's just also with a quarterback that's probably just not going to be able to, install that effectively and be able to run it. Maybe we see it some, and I'll come back to bite my words, but I do think that Iowa's going to see some of these things of Nebraska being able to give up some of these big, if they're going to go watch that USC game, I think they're going to try and set up power and counter a lot. That's just something that, USC ran a power and counter. I mash those together because blocking wise, they seem pretty, they're pretty similar. I think they're going to try and run power and counter pretty much at us. And because if you watch that USC game, this defense struggled with it. So I think they're going to go try and play Iowa football, control the clock, run the ball down our throat. So it really just becomes, can we control the line of scrimmage? I know every coach in the country says that. I know that's going to be one of the keys to every game, but I feel like there's an extra emphasis on it this week, especially defensively. You have to control the line of scrimmage this week. If you do that, then I think Nebraska is going to be in a really good spot to get to 7 wins.
That's Ben Aude. You can follow his show at the BA Coaches Show on Twitter. Buddy, we appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Glad we can finally do this on air.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys.